Hello everybody and welcome to Black Library Reviews Part 4, Idoneth Deepkin. This video is going to be a bit different, as I'm going to cover every story I read about the Idoneth in preparation for the lore videos. But before we begin, I recommend that you buy and read the stories for yourself, because only this way we can support Games Workshop, the Black Library, their authors, and you can enjoy the unabridged stories for yourself. As for every new wonderful being watching this, as every video could be someone's first, these videos are meant to be roleplayed. I don the mantle of a traveler who gathers information about the lore and welcomes you in my newly set up Hammerhead Inn, which is located somewhere in the mortal realms. Now, I won't waste any more of your time. Let's begin. I welcome you back into the Hammerhead Inn, my friend. Please, grab yourself something to drink. I will be right with you. I see. Your thirst for knowledge about the underwater elves hasn't been quenched. Good. In my travels, I came across two different individuals with whom I had various lengths of conversations. Like myself, they spent a portion of their lives with the hunt for information about the Idoneth. How they gathered these, they would not tell me, but they guaranteed me that the information is valid. The first one is a remembrancer called David Geimer. He wrote a book, The Court of the Blind King. A story which goes deeper into the Idoneth society in ways which you could not imagine. Deep beneath the oceans of Geimer, the jade throne of Beardhammer sits empty, and Prince Lurien, the heir to the throne, loses his claim to it, and in order to achieve his birthright, he has to navigate the unique politics of the Idoneth, fight, lie, and betray to his enemies, friends, and distant allies. On 284 pages, your next 11 hours will be magnificent. If you don't have the patience to read it for yourself, a friend of mine, who goes by the name Mark Elstub, will narrate it, just for you. Please, do not forget, the Idoneth are not a good people. They are devious, they love intrigue, they are treacherous, and as isolated beings, self-centered. The characters involved in this story are extraordinary, and the way Mr. Geimer describes them is breathtaking. He did spend quite a long time with them, so he was able to describe them as accurately as possible. You learn about the adaptation traditions, how the different castes treat each other, especially how the Namatai are treated, as you spend quite a long time reading about them, and in my mind, the Namatai are the most fascinating part of the Idoneth society, and the best companion is the Namatai Namariel. But you have to discover her story for yourself. I won't spoil you why Prince Lurien is not able to claim his throne, as this leads to a very intriguing plot point. But in order to rise to the top, he has to prove himself to other Achilleans, friends, and other allies. The politics are fascinating, and sadly, there is not enough of it. But as we live in cruel realms, peace is not an option. The main antagonists are the forces of the Grandfather Nurgle, and Lurien and his companions fight alongside the forces of the Ever-Queen Alariel. But to be honest, there is no real main antagonist. As the story progresses and evolves, the characters act accordingly. You never question their motives and think that a specific action would be out of character. As I said earlier, Remembrancer Geimer uncovered a lot of information. My favorite one is the one about the Khapthar, or talking knots. mandalic spirals of coarse silk which convey the recalled wisdom of the Idoneth. So, the Idoneth version for books. But they need both sight and touch. Unreadable for Narmatai and those who fail to master their senses. But as usual, I digress. It is sad that this story is not as known amongst the common folk as other stories. Everybody knows who Sigmar is and what he has done to build his Stormcast Eternals. But I understand why the Court of the Blind King is a down-to-earth, or rather, shallow water story. Nothing is realm-breaking, it involves a specific cast of characters, and even when it gets bigger, it is like the Idoneth themselves. Isolated. But as a reminder, there are no classical good characters in this story. There is no real noble value behind the actions. It is more like an old friend of mine from the world that was. He was a rather hate-filled one, riding his spiteful mount through the land of chill. The other 4 stories are rather short, but I want to talk about them as well. The second and third story I read was from a remembrancer called Miles Drake. And his first one is a story about the enclave of Morphan. They are the ghosts of Khapthar. After draining of the Khapthar Sea by the wretched Skaven, the Idoneth belonging to the enclave Morphan encounter a unique challenge for them. Almost devoid of the Ether Sea and above water, they have to fight and survive these new circumstances. You follow the soulrender Aklis and how she is forced to commit certain decisions. At first, I was wary to read the story, but the more I read, the more it grew on me. Maybe it was Mr. Drake's writing style or the beginning of the story, I don't really know. But he captured the peril of the characters very well. But with around 49 pages, you don't have to wait long to get to the most exciting parts. Mr. Drake's next story is called The Harrowing Deep. With 1 page more than his other story, this one is more action-packed. He follows and tells you about the actions of Achillean Prince Cycladian as he tries to convince different enclaves to join forces and come out of their self-imposed isolation from each other. Of course, not every Idoneth queen or king will join his idea. And as this story hits a coral reef like a wooden ship in a raging storm, there is more fighting to be done and less talking. That doesn't mean that the talking is bad. Mr. Drake captures everything well, and it was an enjoyable read. The last 2 stories are again by the remembrancer David Geimer, and with both of them I have different connections than the ones written by Mr. Drake. The first one I want to talk about is called The Learning. Rather short, with about 34 pages, it follows the path of an Embaler by the name of Umbraich. You see him being brought to the Turf Scroll, the school for the future Isherans of the Idoneth, and how he's being trained in the art of capturing and training the wild beasts of the sea. It is a very prestigious part of the society. It is very dangerous as well, as they try to tame the most dangerous monsters. I really like the amount of information which Mr. Geimer packed into this short story, but I dislike the Embalers for their treatment of wild and beautiful animals. Of the 4 short stories, the last one is my favorite one, and again written by Mr. David Geimer. The Sea Taketh. Sadly, it is just about 34 pages long, just like his other story, but this one, I could not stop reading it. A very unique story, and I can see why Mr. Geimer's interest in the Idoneth peaked after this one. He followed the adventure of a Caradron, a Sky Duardin. It is unusual for them to venture out on open water, but sometimes someone lets something slip and it falls down from the sky. He is there to recover it, but he gets more than he has bargained for, as he was successful in capturing the attention of the Amar Enclave. The Idoneth are the main antagonists in this story, and is more akin to a horror story. It is suspenseful, and it really shows you how distanced the Idoneth are to the other factions in the mortal realms. I hope this will help you in your decision what to read in these troubled times. I'm keen to know what you think about these stories. Just leave me a note under my table, and I will read it as soon as I can. I hope you will lend your ear to my stories again. I have many more for you to quench your thirst for knowledge. You just have to listen for the bell, and you will know that I'm here again, waiting for you. Have a good night, friend, and please, stay fantastic. Bye.